So let's get some perspective right now and some insights. Bringing in attorney Adanté Pointer. Thanks so much for joining us on Live Now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about, obviously, there will be questions about Trump's legal battles tonight and really the path forward for Donald Trump as, this is, we've already seen him be found guilty, but it doesn't seem like it has slowed any of the momentum that he has made in the polling. But going forward, he still has a lot of cases that could be coming.
Yes, he does. He was obviously convicted as it relates to the hush money case, 34 different felony charges. However, that seems to have actually boosted his campaign by causing people to want to contribute and get behind him. Of course, he's stylizing this as a politically motivated prosecution. But that's just one aspect. He's awaiting sentencing. No one expects him to get jail time. However, he still needs to be sentenced on that. Now, as it relates to the other pending cases, he got a win because, frankly, the case as it relates to the confidential documents, that's been delayed. And so until that's resolved, he's not facing a federal conviction based upon confidential documents and national secrets. So his path to the White House, although it's a minefield of legal cases, it looks like he's tiptoeing through the tulips at this point.
Yeah, it really does. And it's, Dante, it's so surreal just even talking about a leading, Republican candidate who is also, by the way, a former president, and talking in the same sentences about the debate tonight and then trying to navigate these legal ways. I mean, that right there is just so surreal.
It is. We haven't seen this before. Not only do we have a former president who has been convicted of multiple felony charges, but you have a president who's hanging on the Supreme Court's decision as to whether or not potentially more criminal charges can be brought against him for actions that he took in the furtherance of his presidential office. At least that's his claim. So this could be very thorny legal and political issues as the presidential campaign moves forward.
Yeah, and going forward, though, when we were looking at these before any of the trial started, when we were just hearing of the indictments, when the indictments were, it just seemed like it was, a new week, new indictments for the former president. And you thought to yourself, this was about, like, let's just say 11 months ago, 12 months ago, and you're thinking, oh, wow, how is he going to, continue to navigate these areas? But the way it's set up now, where you don't know when the next really trial date could be because everything is being delayed, it's really setting him up now for these summer months to hit full campaign mode.
Absolutely. The way in which the judicial system works, and people who are familiar know, it's a very slow process, a slow grind. So it's not necessarily surprising that the criminal justice system or even the civil justice system is moving in fits and spurts. It's to his benefit because essentially he doesn't have to go sit through another trial like we just saw him do. Instead, he can focus on campaigning and trying to gain his office, which practically speaking, if he wins presidency again, I assume that he's going to pardon himself and others.
And I have to ask you here, going forward as we look into the summer months there, but as we get into the fall, and if there is no trial dates set, could they even, I'm talking about October. If we get into the month of October and they want to try maybe to start a trial, then is that almost too late when we're getting that close to November?
I think a judge would be pretty loath to want to get a trial started right on the eve of the presidential elections and things. So, I'd be surprised to see a judge actually get the trial started at that time. However, if that were to happen, once again, Donald Trump, former president, has done an excellent job of rallying his base in terms of looking at all these legal fights that he has as being more politically motivated, which is motivating his base to come out and vote. On the other side of the aisle, the Democrats just point to this as just one more proof, Exhibit A, that this guy is not fit to be president and is not the person he claims himself to be in terms of being a fit business person or a person of high moral character, fit enough to be president of our country.
Right, right. So what would you say would be maybe the final month where they could like start something if they were going to before the election? With September?
September is certainly on the table. It's still cutting it a little close. But I could see if a judge did decide to move forward with a trial in September, it could essentially be finished perhaps by the time you start getting into the very last weeks of the campaign. However, once again, I still think that given the way in which the courts have signaled putting these trials off and not setting a trial setting conferences, it's highly unlikely, I think, that we see another trial before the election.
And lastly, Dante, earlier this week, we saw the New York judge partially lift that gag order on Donald Trump there. And while that's good for Donald Trump himself, where he could, continue to maybe talk a little bit more about it at his rallies, it's also maybe a negative against him, would you say? Because now it seems like that opens up the CNN moderators tonight to maybe ask him a little bit more questions about it, where before he would say he could say, I'm under a gag order. Now, not so.
Right. Well, certainly with the judge lifting the gag order, he's free to talk and comment and remark upon the trial and all the different people who were involved and his thoughts around the trial, which I think he's going to do because in his political calculation, it inures to his benefit. However, you're right; it is a double-edged sword. If you start talking, you can't unring the bell, and so those moderators certainly can ask him some pointed questions and potentially put him on the defense. So he has to be very careful as it relates to what he says and how he postures around the trial and what it really means as it relates to his conviction as well as his thoughts about our judiciary.
So true. And we'll all be watching tonight, see how it all plays out. Adanté Pointer, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. Gave some great perspective on the legal battles and what to look forward to in the summer and fall.
Yes, moving forward.
Yes, you take care.
You too.